Hello, welcome to the American Business Podcast. This is Kevin Devecioglu, your host. I am welcoming you to episode 82, and we are in season 3. We are getting more episodes in the American Business Podcast, and our goal is to reach 100 episodes within this year. The American Business Podcast is the voice of American business. And today's number is 33 million. That is the number of small businesses in the US. Well, speaking of businesses, we have a lot to talk about today, different businesses, different entrepreneurship opportunities, as well as different business management styles. We have a great expert today. We'll get the conversation started and we'll learn more about leadership and entrepreneurship and business management. Let's invite our guest and let's get the conversation started. Hello, Justin. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for being with us in your busy schedule. How is your week going so far?
It's good. It's very good. Yeah. Wrapping up the week. So all is good.
Yes, Friday is the best day of the week. That's for sure.
Yes, sir.
Well, if that's okay, we can get started. We have a lot to cover, and we are
Yeah,
looking
let's dive
forward
in.
to hearing and learning from you.
Absolutely.
Well, as a start, thank you so much. As a start, would you please introduce yourself and your organization briefly to our audience and to our listeners?
Yeah, you bet. My name's Justin Lund, as you introduced, and I run a company called Propel Enterprises, where we help small business owners and small businesses to kind of get through a level. I call it getting unstuck. There's a lot of businesses that have been around and kind of hit a ceiling of growth where some of the old methods and mechanisms that got them to that first level of success that they experience no longer work, and they need to transcend that level and kind of get above that. Often it's getting mired and bogged down in administrative details. It's spending time in sales, making some sales, and then turning your attention over to fulfillment and delivery, and then the sales slow down, and then you don't have leads, so you go to marketing, and it's often just like a little bit too much chaotic stuff going on. And that's where we jump in and help take some of that red tape, administrative burden off of the plate of the founder and give them some frameworks and tools and some different mindsets to help go into a new level and reach a new level of revenue.
Can you tell us about your career path, how it has unfolded, and how you started your career professionally?
Yeah, sure. A lot of accidents, and I would say it's kind of the hand of God really coming into my life in a lot of different ways, a lot of grace. Um, the way that it started, I started in sales as I was going through college. I was dating a woman and we got pregnant. And so we kind of accelerated some of our marriage plans. And my sales growth I had a kind of a natural knack for sales because I really loved things like Tony Robbins and the Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy. I was always listening to those. There were tapes back then. I was listening to tapes and reading the books, and I'm just filling my mind with those kind of things. Um, so it was always a passion of mine, and that's actually how I made sales too. I would just take what I read that day and pretty much try to parrot that back out in my sales pitch and use those lines to close sales. Um, that got me into a high pressure sales environment where there was a lot of drug abuse, and I fell victim to some of that. Kind of fell into that rather, um, and falling into that situation led me into a rehabilitation facility, to be honest, where I learned a lot of frameworks and psychology more about me, not just generally, not a nightstand book, but really a practical application of how to bring some of those issues that were affecting me in my life. And it was really transformative. I mean, I was scared to death to go into that situation, but going there and working for 6 weeks intensively on just me without the distractions of the outside world, I really began to learn the power of frameworks. And I still use them today. I give them to clients today that I learned 20 years ago in a rehab facility. Um, this whole idea that stimulus, stress, things come our way, it comes in. and we have this moment in the middle. Stephen Covey wrote about this. There's a place where you can pause, and you have the ability to choose a response, and that's different than like we're the only ones that have that ability. Animals, they don't have so much. Like we're kind of in a special spot there where we have a stimuli and we can decide what sort of response we want to have. And the best way to determine the most powerful responses, and I think we'll get into more of this, is by having frameworks and tools set up in advance, so you don't just have to rely on your best day or your best motivation or your best, because sometimes it's not my best self that shows up. I'll be honest. There's days that it's below my best self. So that's what I'd say there.
All right. Well, can you also tell us about your day-to-day work experience? What are the challenging and exciting parts of your work on daily basis?
Yeah, I guess one of the challenges that I've recently undertaken in my day-to-day work is I love working with founders and I love helping them to shift their mindsets. And that part comes very naturally based on that experience and that career trajectory after rehab. I started a business. I grew a big business out of that within the next few years, reached almost nine figures inside of about 3 years, 3.5 years, 4 years. And then I had a partner who took a lot of that out of the business and embezzled a lot of money. That put me into a 4.5 year litigation cycle. And that was really what landed me here where I am today. Um, the challenge, so that those were my challenges then, and that really shapes the career path that I've been on for years now, a decade and a half. Working with other business owners and entrepreneurs, there's a lot of things that I can see because of the rocky journey, if you will, that I've been on, that just seem like second nature and natural to me. Not because I was necessarily good at it, but because I've been dragged through some really tough, rough stuff, and that gives you that unique perspective. Um, what I've set out as a challenge on a day-to-day basis now is I really would like to take my mess, my history, my background, and turn that into my message that I can help other people avoid some of those pitfalls and some of those perils. Um, all the way from youth that maybe not necessarily just youth, like adults too, that struggle with addiction or confidence or self-worth kinds of struggles in their mind, all the way up to entrepreneurs that are at high level, high performing people that have self-sabotaging beliefs and thoughts and behaviors. But the challenge that I'm working through, that I took on this year, is to get out of my comfort zone bubble and to go into content. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here on this podcast, and why I show up on Instagram 2 or 3 or 4 videos every single day, and on LinkedIn. And it's easy for me to do one-to-one. I've always loved and thrived in that environment, but I want to impact more people than I could reach on a one-to-one. So I thought the only way I can do that is through content. So I now grab this every day and I talk to it and I publish it. And I started doing that this year and it scared the hell out of me. But it's been a really good kind of self-growth. Dan Martell says this in some of his content. He says, making content is the best self-improvement program that you can undertake because it brings all the stuff up inside and you just got to work through it or give up, right? And so I've been going at it
Yes.
now for 10, 11 months and I'm starting to get a little bit better and feeling a little more comfortable, but I was shocked how hard that is to show up every day.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really exciting, and I'm glad that you also join us in the American Business Podcast, the voice of American business, and we can help you spread the message.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. And Justin, you work with different business owners and
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, and different businessmen. So, based on your professional observation and experience, how do you see the leadership style of business owners and entrepreneurs in the US?
Hmm. That's a big question. I think, well, I tend to see styles that match to revenue ranges, and these are not exact, so nobody get offended.
Yeah,
But
in general, yes, in
yeah,
general,
in
yes,
general,
absolutely.
I think. I think there's a style that is like that 0 to 5, 6, $700,000, that startup phase where the owner, the founder is wearing literally every hat. It's often just them, maybe one other person. Sometimes it's their spouse or their brother or their, whatever. Then there's the 5, 6, 700 to 1.5, 1.8, like usually around 2, south of 2 million. There's another style. And each of these categories I feel have a different, there's common themes and problems that are apparent and that present themselves in these categories. Level one, it's very easy. Like the biggest problem there is just enough time. And usually the founder in that phase is working 60, 80, 100 hours, sometimes a week, because they got to do the bookkeeping, they have to do the invoicing, they have to do the sales, they have to do the delivery, they have to do fulfillment, they have, the whole thing. So that's the biggest constraint there. And then in the next phase, you start to introduce some new complexities because there's enough growth. So you have to start looking at finances. There's a little bit of some self-doubt that often comes in with founders, where some of the areas that they're not the strongest at now get a little bit more of a spotlight shined on them, and that can become very challenging. As well as humans start to come into the picture a little bit more. So not just the humans you serve or sell to, but the humans that are working on your team. And you bring in a person or two or three more, and now you may not have realized you needed to budget an hour a day just to manage those humans on top of all the work that you're also doing. So that's a big misconception, that people just think I'm going to hire and get better and have more scale. Well, you can, but there's a method and there's a sequence to doing it to get its optimal leverage. Um, so back to your question is what is the general? I think there's a lot of different leadership styles that come up, and foibles, right? The some of the weak spots become really apparent at these different levels. And often I see a lot of people when they're going between levels, when they're right at this point where where they're trying to break into the next level, that's where they tend to kind of look the other way. It's just like, okay, I'm gonna leave the letter that had the red past due stamp on it over there. I'll look at that later. Right now, I'm gonna spend my time looking over here. And it's often kind of like a head in the sand sort of strategy. And so that's a common theme that I see, even at 500,000 and 2.5 million. It might be different things that they're avoiding, but there's that avoidance of the area that they're not the strongest in. So I'd say that a lot of those traits really come back to these revenue categories, though, because in those categories are different challenges and different opportunities to grow within the business. But there's some common threads that are there, and a lot of people think like, well, no, mine's different. With my business, I do this and well, I would bet you it's not that different at all. Actually, they're they're very common from one business to even a software development company to a plumber in the same revenue ranges. I will bet my bank account balance that they are experiencing some of the same exact concerns, the same exact constraints and problems, and that I could pluck one and the other and put them together, and they would become fast friends because they'd say, "No, you're dealing with that too. Listen to this," and they'd swap stories, and immediately they're like, "Wow, we deal with the same stuff every day. You write code, I plumb buildings, whatever."
I like to talk about the impact of AI on business in
Mm.
general. So, what is your take on AI and how it is impacting businesses, small and other sizes of businesses in the US, based on your professional observation, and how you think it's going to shape the business world?
Yeah, I love it. I love AI, and I love all the opportunities there. I'm not. I try to be an optimist, to where I'm not too worried about some of all the taking over of stuff that some people maybe have some doom and gloom sort of ideas about. I could be proven wrong, though. I get that too. So, my take on it is that I do love it, and I think, I mean, I push my team daily. I ask them many, many times a day, what was your prompt to AI about that? So anytime an issue comes up, so what I want to do is I want to create a culture in my organization of defaulting to AI. And if we don't do that, I feel like it's moving so fast that it will pass us by so quickly. And I heard something that I think it's appropriate to share here that is a truth that I've seen in my life and I've seen in other business life, entrepreneurs and owners, founders' lives. That when you're in an economy or a market that is taking off, you've got that big hockey stick just starting to climb.
Mhm.
You don't have to be very good to be getting great results. So imagine there's a big housing boom and you're in some field in construction. You can just be okay and
Mhm.
you can get phenomenal results because the economy makes up for some of your potential deficiencies. Now, as soon as that starts to constrict and contract, those deficiencies come out and they feel bigger than ever because you never address them during the hockey stick growth. But back to AI, this is what I'm telling my team is we same thing. We only have to be a beginner to be really quite good. But if we get good, we'll be really great because it's just taking off. And there's products coming into the marketplace that are AI based, I don't know, by the thousands per day. Like there's so many, it's hard to keep up. And all the models are releasing updates and they're getting more powerful. So I'm glad to be a part of it. And I'm actually glad that I was part of a mastermind group a year and a half ago where I heard a key piece of information. So if anybody's not using AI and they're like, I don't know if it really applies to me, every time you think you want to Google something, just go to Chat GPT instead. Put your same question in. Just stop using Google. This is nothing against Google, but stop using a search engine and use AI instead and watch how your life begins to change. And again, if you can just get decent, you can become really quite good. So in my organization, I try to create a default to AI sort of culture, where it's like, I'm not sure what to do. Did you ask AI? Did you ask this? What was your prompt? Because that's the next part of it. A lot of people are using it for simple things like write me this email, which is great. I don't think I don't ever want to write an email again. To be honest, AI can do it. I use my voice and I tap into voice transcription using a different AI product. So it's in my computer. And then my voice prompts, because I can say things a lot faster than I can type things. So I just give it a quick, long prompt and it writes the email for me. But that's just the beginning. That's the tip of the iceberg, and what we've got to get better at is giving more context to AI so that it knows it's not just imagine, Kevin, all the world's information throughout all of the history is available to us in a quick search.
Mhm.
So if you ask a question and I ask the question about what we should do in our life, it's going to give us a similar answer because it's pulling from this massive trove of data. But if AI knows more about me and I've given it context to my business, my ideal customers, my problems, my marriage, my children's relationship with me, like all of these things, and it has all that context. Then when I say, all right, what do I do about this and this and this? And how can I do this? And how can I phrase that? And I use my voice to just spit out a bunch of garbage. Here's a fun stat that I learned the other day. That based on, and
Mhm.
I don't know if I know the geeky terms for this, but I think Chat GPT and equivalent models can take like 150,000 tokens as input right now. And what that means, which I didn't know what that means. So somebody translated that into English, which it means the equivalent of about two books, like full size 350, 400-page books as a prompt. So look at your last prompt history and see how long they are, because it can handle two full books for every prompt that you give. So if you give it massive context and it knows more about you, it can give answers for your questions that are specific, tailored to you, which is just a massive unlock. So I love it. I think it's going to be very disruptive. And I don't think it's coming for your job, but I think somebody who's using it is coming for your job because it's going to make, if you just are, you're pushing it off to the side and thinking that it's not something you need to deal with or you should be aware of, then I think you will get caught flat footed and it will pass you by.
About crisis and uncertainty in business, if that's okay. Um, so,
Yeah, say that again if you could.
how
You're kind of
what
just
are
a
the
little.
best ways? Yes. Okay, absolutely. Uh, what are the best ways to survive crisis and uncertainty?
Mm. Well, I'd say I'm a big fan of systems, and sometimes when you get into a crisis or a situation that you weren't planning on and it's going, terrible as far as your judgment is concerned, um, if you're getting a result that is continually like if you're getting that kind of feedback, I like to have systems and frameworks to go to. And I learned that back, like I said, in rehab. You got to create systems that are based on your worst days just as much as your best days. Otherwise, you're really setting up your game to fail. Um, so if I'm getting here's a pretty simple one. Okay, some of my systems are pretty easy and simple because then you don't forget. You don't entrepreneurs are brilliant at complicating things, right? We set this new goal and we come up with a new idea. We'll not only just write it down, we turn it into a 17-page Notion document, and we have all these new apps, and we go buy a new wardrobe and an outfit to go along with it. I mean, my hell, we can make things pretty complex. That's kind of just what we do in solving problems. So I like to try to focus some of the frameworks and systems to be very simple. So if you're going through a crisis and you're dealing with something that isn't giving you the result you want, what should you do? Anything else. Something different. Like rattle yourself. And that's like really, it's just that breaking outside of a mold and not doing the same thing. And I've had my fair share of those crises. And I've been in situations where I've had bank accounts drained and realized that there's millions of dollars in taxes that were not paid. And now there's no money to pay them. I got to figure out what to do. And there's no way to sit on the precipice of a crisis like that and to feel just calm and to be like, oh, I'm sure everything will be fine. But you have to go through you can't, you also need to know that you need your faculties, right? You need to take care of yourself. You need to have your mental wherewithal. You need to have the ability to stick with it and to solve the problem. And so I say the best way forward is through, and you go through, you just go from one day at a time, and you continue to look at what are the results that I'm getting. One of the other things that I think is critical that I work with a lot of founders on, they completely neglect themselves. So there's no they get busy with the business, and then they got a family too, and then they want to work in a vacation, and they want to, then they have a hobby here and there they want to do. And sometimes they pick up a bad habit, which adds to another whole new area. A lot of founders have that problem because there's so much pressure and stuff going on here at work that they just need to blow off some steam with 17 drinks every weekend or whatever, and that's cool. That's fine. It's just, is it adding to your ability to solve those problems and to work through the crisis, or is it diminishing it? So I know that there's things that you can do that change your brain chemistry. You can get exercise. But one key is bringing outside information. And I love to read. Like, I read books, nonfiction books, because just think, like, really just boil it down to its basic logic system is you've got like a lifetime that somebody spent going through all these lessons and experiences, and they put it into 300 pages. Like, in that 300 pages, I can immerse myself and live a bit of their life without having to suffer like they did. And if all I think about is the stuff in my head, then I'm going, by definition, Kevin, I'm going to continue to get the results that I've got because I've got to bring new things in there. I'll give you an example of that. Like, this wasn't necessarily a crisis, but I had set a goal and I'd been very public about my goal and trying to hit a certain fitness level and body fat percentage. And I was stuck at a plateau for 6 months. I tried everything I could think of. I starved myself. I went on 30 grams of carbs per day, which is, I mean, that's like a piece of broccoli. It's nothing. And so I was kind of crazy because I had blood sugar levels that were doing crazy stuff, and I was getting angry about it. Nothing moved the needle. It wasn't moving. I couldn't believe it. It wasn't budging. And so I went back through my goal setting matrix process that I teach founders in my programs and that I work on, and that's in my content. And went into the resource section. I'm like, well, okay, this is not working. I don't have the answer. So on my resources were trainers. It was following influencers on Instagram. So I started looking at content, started talking to trainers, and everybody kept saying, take 15,000 steps. Take 10,000 to 15,000 steps every day. I dismissed it the first time, second time, sixth time. I'm like, there's no way. 80-year-old people go on walks. I'm healthy. I lift heavy weights. I don't need to go on a walk, for heaven's sakes. But on the seventh time that I saw it, I was like, okay, I get it finally. So I added that to my systems of like what I was doing. And I went from the plateau that I was at, I dropped, I blew past that in 2 weeks, and I surpassed my goal immense. Like I was shooting for 11% body fat, below 11, and I was stuck at 12. That's where I was at for 6 months. And within 2 weeks, I was down below 10. I was at 10. 2 weeks later, I was at 8.4. And I just, so in a month, I just, because I brought in outside stuff. So many of the times when we're running into a crisis, and that's why I share the story, because a crisis, we feel like we hunker down and we kind of, we got to figure this stuff out. If you're not going outside of your mind, your own knowledge and awareness, I tell this to my team all the time. I said, guys, if you think that in this room we're going to have the answers to reach 50,000 business owners in our content, we are screwed, because there's not one person in this room who's ever done that before. So we got to go outside of the room. We got to find coaches. We got to find mentors. We got to read books. We got to do stuff that brings that outside input to affect our minds so that we can deliver the product that can reach 50,000 people.
Well, if there's one key career lesson you learned the hard way, what would it be that you can share
Mm,
with our audience and with our listeners?
you bet. I've learned a lot, and I tend to be the guy that learns the hard way, unfortunately. At least my first 40 years of life, I guess. I was the guy who learned the hard way. Um, And that is, I think I would say the number one thing that's caused me the most pain and struggle unnecessarily is, don't avoid what you don't know or what is intimidating to you. It doesn't mean you have to jump in and, a lot of people say this to me when it comes to their accounting and their numbers. There's these entrepreneurs or creatives, they like to build stuff, and that generally translates into numbers, P&Ls, taxes being something I just don't want to talk about. And I would say you don't have to become a CPA. You don't need a master's degree in accounting to begin. Like, build a little bit of a process to start looking at your numbers, as an example. So I think that's the biggest lesson for me is, if you feel discomfort, if you feel that twang, that twinge of, oh, I'd rather just kind of put that off, do create a system for bringing that into your day to day at some level, and start small. Doesn't need to be big, doesn't need to be elaborate. Small and consistent is way better than big and elaborate.
Is there a book, a show, a movie that help you shape your career perspective that you can tell us
Hmm.
about?
I don't know that there is a particular one, but as I mentioned, I love to
I know
read,
you
and I
read.
love bringing
Yes,
this.
I
Yeah, yeah.
I know you do.
I'm
Yes, that's
always
great.
bringing things in, and so I think just the idea. I don't know that there is a particular one, but one has such an effect, and being able to come back to it and read things. There's, well, one's coming to mind right now. Actually, "Work the System" by Sam Carpenter is a great one. If you like systems thinking and you want to reduce things to their mechanical counterparts to get consistent and reliable results, it's maybe not the most. I mean, it's a systems book, so it's a little on the system side, but man, I thought it was great. I loved it. I've read it 5 or 6 times, and that's one of my strategies. The really good ones, I star and I save in a certain file in my Apple Books and go back and read them again and again. So I think just the fact, I'd say my favorite is, I'm so grateful for the habit of reading. And even more, I anchor those through my process of, I set goals to read a certain number of books in a year, and I usually complete about one a week. And I tie those habits of reading to, right now I use a treadmill to get my steps in, because now I need the steps. So now I have my iPad out on the treadmill, and I can read while I walk, and I can do that for an hour and a half, and just, that's actually fantastic for me, accomplishing 2 or 3 things at once, gaining expertise and insight. So I don't know that there's one. I do like the systems, Work the System, Sam Carpenter. Um, but just the practice of reading every day and always bringing something into your mind, it's helped me to not only get out of major crises, but also it's helped to prevent those crises and see the writing on the wall, because I'm bringing input in and not just living like in these six
Mhm.
inches.
Yes, this is really inspiring. Thank you for sharing with us. Especially reading a book a week is great, and us as business people, we all should do it. That's really inspiring. Thank
I
you
agree.
for sharing it with
Yeah.
us. Um, well, what are your biggest interests outside of work?
Well, I have 4 kids, so that's probably where my mind goes. It's funny though, it's not really outside of work, Kevin. It's kind of the same thing because the frameworks and things I work on at home or at work, I bring into the home. And so a lot of the goal setting or a lot of the clarifying or coming up with a vision and direction and building systems. I'm doing it with my 17-year-old who's actually I'm not in my office right now. I'm at a friend's office because we're at a baseball tournament and my 17-year-old is outside in the car. And so I have him working some of the same things. So that really I love baseball because my kids do. But I love working with my kids and showing them how to try to unlock some of the conditioning that even I give them or society or whatever, have a backup plan. And what are you going to do? Like I try to teach them to go all in. So my kid, I like to play golf. I like to travel. But I'm at this weird phase too in life, the new phase ish, where my oldest just graduated college in May, and so now she is working a full time job as a music teacher back east in New England, and so then I'm just kind of at this point where I see the kids moving out and moving on, and they've been everything that I've taken them to school every day for the last 15 years, and now it's like, wow, they don't need me anymore. So while I'm still very much in how I engage more.
All right, looks like Justin having a connection issue. Let's give him a minute. Well, in the meantime, yes, when we think about what he has been saying, it's actually very insightful, and especially those that he mentioned about addressing crisis and so uncertainty and addressing things that actually we don't know about, reading books and learning from other experts to improve ourselves professionally as well as institutionally in terms of our businesses. I think that's very inspiring. Let's see if Justin can reconnect. Justin, are you with us?
Kevin,
All
can you
right.
hear me?
Yes, looks like you are back. All right, we can hear you.
Ah, okay. Okay, good. All right. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened.
Yeah, no, not a problem. Not a problem. So, all right, let's do this. Okay. All right, looks like you're back.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, good.
Yes. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, when the life is changing, and when the family members are actually growing and leaving the house, that's quite an experience. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us.
It is. Yeah,
Well,
you bet.
how to stay motivated and inspired in times of hardship and challenges in business.
Yeah, that's a great question. Like I said before, I don't think we can rely on motivation. Motivation is a good spark, but it doesn't last. I'm a lot more motivated in the morning than I am in the afternoon. So if I'm relying on motivation, does that mean every afternoon sucks? And just I don't. And this is the same thing. I'm going through this with my 17-year-old son because you can imagine, 17-year-old isn't looking real far down the road. They're not looking at a 10 or 20-year path, even though they have often goals, hopes, and ambitions. They don't affect the day to day. So what you've got to do is I try to create a system that is based on, well, let me say it this way. I know that I'm not always going to make the best decision, always make the right decision. So instead of trying, actually, instead of just getting up and being like, okay, I'm going to try harder today to make better decisions, I tried to make it virtually impossible to make bad decisions, to make the wrong choice. And the way that you can do that is by framing your system. So I'm going to give you an example from my son because we were just talking about him. So he wants to focus on baseball and he loves to play golf. Okay, so he's got a baseball program like what he's doing in his mind. He's created like if I do this, 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 and this, I should be able to get into college, and I'll keep getting better and better and better. Well, that all works until a bunch of his buddies call and say, "Hey, do you want to go play golf?" And now golf takes 5 hours, 4 hours, all these things. And so it kind of pulls him up, but it's really fun. So he's built the framework to maintain this motivation, good or bad. And now he's got a goal to get 10 pounds of body weight added within 10 weeks. And if he succeeds, I'm going to go half in with him on a gym membership that he wants for a baseball facility. And if he fails, he will sell his golf clubs. So it's a motivator to do the things he needs to do now to remember to put the food in his body that'll help him grow. But the cool part is even if he fails, he wins because he'll be selling the golf clubs that are actually distracting him from the baseball, and it'll give him money to buy some baseball equipment that he wants to have. So that's how I'd come back to your question. Like, how do you stay motivated and inspired? Build the game in a way that you can win, no matter what, even on your worst days. So create these systems in advance, decide the day before, and try to reduce the amount of day-to-day decision making you have to do within your system, because decisions are hard and they take bandwidth and fuel away from us, and that depletes our reservoir of motivation. So build the system once and let the system run. And if you're not sure how to do that, then you need to bring outside information in to get that done.
For those among our audience, for those who like to continue this conversation and who like to be in touch with you, what is the best way to be in touch with you uh, after the podcast episode?
Yeah, I'd love to have you. I'm trying to impact 50,000 business owners. I'd love to have you come over and follow us on Instagram or LinkedIn or TikTok. All those platforms are all it's the same handle. It's Justin Lund. Um, and I'd love to see you there. I'm personally in all the DMs. So if you have a question on anything, if there's any of the playbooks that I have that we use, I've got internal SOPs and things we use on our team, and just Google Docs, a whole library of them. I'm happy to share if there's a challenge that you're facing. I did a podcast yesterday, and one of those, the podcast host he was kind of going through challenges and trying to find an assistant and didn't really have the best hiring structure. So after the podcast, I sent him my playbook on how to hire, and just it cuts the process from 40 to 60 hours down to 8,
Mhm.
and it gets you a lot better clients, a lot better prospects for your job. So yeah, I'd love to see anybody over there. Please come check it out. And you don't need to just come let me know what you think of the content. That'd be great.
Justin, thank you so much for being with us in your busy schedule, and thank you for sharing
Yeah,
your
thank you.
professional wisdom and professional insight with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me,
of
Kevin. It
course,
was good to
have a
talk to
great
you.
weekend. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye.
Well, to our audience and to our listeners, I hope you enjoy this week's episode as well. And we continue bringing you insightful and educational content in the American Business Podcast. The American Business Podcast is the voice of American business. If you like to sponsor and advertise in the American Business Podcast, you can send us an email, americanbusinesspodcast@gmail.com. We also love to hear from you in terms of your feedback, what you think about the podcast, what you think about AI. Put your comments in the chat box in YouTube. We'll really appreciate it. Also, if you like to be a guest in the American Business Podcast, you can send us an email as well, americanbusinesspodcast@gmail.com. We are very responsive, and once you send us an email, we'll reply within 24 hours, and looking forward to connecting you. For the common podcast episodes and the content that's coming up in the American Business Podcast, the voice of American business, please visit our website, americanpodcast.tv. And if you haven't done so, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. We have more than 120,000 YouTube subscribers. Thank you for your support. We love to have you in our subscription list. If you scan these QR code, it'll take you directly to our YouTube channel, and you can subscribe and follow the American Business Podcast, the voice of American business. That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for being with us. And I'm looking forward to having you in the coming The American Business Podcast episodes. The American Business Podcast is the voice of American business. Thank you very much and have a great weekend.